What's up, everybody? It's Drewberry back with Snapper Pass. Now, we have the new season coming up, but it hasn't been officially announced yet. Usually happens on Fridays. I tried asking the devs a bunch of questions about the new cards, about the video. I'm getting completely ghosted. So I figured, I only have so much time on the weekend. I'm just going to put this video out. Should this card change by the time the announcement video comes up, I'm going to do a star ratings video and I'll cover the changes there. But I'm pretty confident that this card is going to stay the same. That is because she was just recently changed in the last OTA data mines. So previously she was a 3/3. After you play a card here, you get +1 energy next turn. In her really old data mine, she was +2 energy, so that got nerfed, but then she got buffed and now she's a 3/4 since the last OTA. So I think this is going to be the final version for the season pass card of March of 2024, and that is Hope Summers 3/4. After you play a card here, you get +1 energy next turn. Seems like really good ability, right? And accompanying her is some pretty awesome variants. So you get these Magneto, Hope Summers, and Iron Man variants in the season pass. Of course, there's going to be another card releasing the same week as Hope Summers that I'm going to cover later in a few days. So I'm not going to cover the Spotlight Cache because that's not actually relevant with Hope Summers. Instead, it's more about the season pass cosmetics that you can acquire. But I want to talk about the mechanics, some counters, some deck lists that are brewed up because I think this is going to be a very spicy card and I'm excited to talk about it. So let's get to it. All right, so I want to explain off the top the energy gain mechanic. I think the easiest way to understand this card is going back to a very old Series 1, I believe, card. Series 1 or 2, I'm pretty sure Series 1 is Angela, right? So Angela reads, after you play a card here, you get +1 power. Angela does anyhow. So Hope Summers is essentially the equivalent, except instead of getting power, you're getting energy. So a lot of the mechanics and interactions that you have experienced with Angela, well, it's going to apply to Hope Summers. Now, the big difference for me is the energy gain, and how does that work? Well, it's not necessarily like something like Corvus that we just saw came out a few weeks ago. He's giving you max energy off of his on reveal, whereas Hope Summers is a reoccurring ability that you can gain that energy every single turn, and you can actually stack multiple cards if you play 2 or 3 at her location to gain 2 or 3 energy on the following turn. But if you do not play a card at her location on that following turn, you're going to get no energy, bonus energy, on the turn after that. Does that make sense? So let's say you play her on turn 3. She's a 3-drop, right? And then on turn 4, you play 3 cards at her location. Well, that means on turn 5, you're going to have +3 bonus energy to spend on top of the 5. You got 8 to work with. That's fantastic. But you probably can't play a card at her location. Maybe you can because you built your deck accordingly, but let's say you can't. Turn 6, you're just going to have 6 energy, just like you normally did. Now, there's a few ways you can be clever with this ability, but I just want to highlight the ways that it's not going to work. So, for instance, if you play Beast at Hope's location, you're not going to get the +1 energy on the following turn from Beast being played there. He's going to scoop her up first, and because her ability says after you've played a card, well, she's not on the board anymore to recognize that a card has been played there, so she's not going to activate. She's in your hand now. And the same applies if you try to destroy her with like Carnage or Venom or something like that. You're trying to eat her up. Well, you've destroyed her. She can't activate her ability. She's dead. You know what I'm saying? Another one is tokens, right? So if you play Mr. Sinister there and you're thinking you're going to be kind of cheeky and get 2 energy the next turn, no, the Sinister clone is not going to give you that energy. It was not played, it was summoned. So you just got to watch out for those little nuances, okay? But there are some very interesting ways to take advantage of an ability like this, right? So I'm thinking, my first thought is junk. You play a Green Goblin and then you send it over there. You keep the spot open on your side. You get the +1 energy and you give your opponent -3 power. That is sick. It's always worked well with Angela, in fact. On top of that is move, right? You could play Jeff there or Nightcrawler or Vision and you're going to get that bonus energy for the following turn. And then you can just move those cards off so that you can play more cards there to get more energy on the following turns. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to this card. Some of the pros, okay? So like I was saying, not Corvus. Corvus is giving you that energy ramp. It's going to give you that +1 max energy turn over turn, but it's not going to be a big burst energy gain that Hope Summers can achieve by giving you like +2 or 3 on just the following turn. which is kind of interesting and I think a little bit more effective because you can plan and decide when you want to have that energy. Maybe you want to set up for a very big turn 5 or 4 play. Well, you got to play a bunch of cards at Hope Summers location. There's going to be some space management issues, as you see right down here, that I think is going to be a little bit tricky, right? There's some locations that can restrict where you can play cards. Your opponent can move cards to Hope's location to fill up positions at her spot. So maybe if you wait a little too long, you might not be able to really get a lot of value out of this card in the late game. Unless you hold on to her in your hand and you have a couple of cards that are going to work well together, that might get a little bit tricky. But triggered abilities have historically had very few counters. And because she doesn't even have power gain, she's not countered by Shadow King. She's not countered by Enchantress. She's not countered by Cosmo, right? These core counters to Marvel Snap are not actually affecting Hope Summers. She still does have counters. I found quite a few, but they're not nearly as popular as those tech cards I was just mentioning. And then another one is just like, why am I excited about this card? Is because the possibilities that this card is going to open up. It's a great season pass card in my opinion, because it can fit in a lot of deck lists and it might just brew up like a few new ones. But I think for the most part, this is going to help a lot of existing archetypes, but you never know. It's a crazy card, man. Energy gain has historically always done well. And lastly, some of the cons that I see with this card is that it's telegraphed plays, right? So your opponent is going to know that you most likely want to play some cards at Hope Summers location. And they can take advantage of that with a few cards in their hand. Maybe allocate power elsewhere, like Professor X or something like that. Lock down another location because they're going to anticipate you playing at the Summers location. On top of that, there's things like the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? That could reap some pretty awesome rewards from telegraphed plays. So just got to watch out for that. It's kind of like a Jean Grey effect, a little bit. Another one is not instant energy gain. So we've already kind of talked about that, but you need to play this with something else to really get value out of her ability. Going back to the Corvus example is, yeah, you just have to discard 2 cards. That's not so bad, especially if you want to do that with your deck list. But he's going to give you that energy instantly. He's just doing it as long as you meet that condition. Whereas Hope is kind of a 2-turn setup unless you got like a 0-cost card in your hand like Wasp. So you're playing Hope, and then you're going to play some cards at her location afterwards to get value on the following turn after that. So as you can kind of see, there's just a few steps there that might, give you a bit of a hard time to really pop off on your combos. I really don't think it's all that bad because we've seen Angela do so well. But it's a factor. It's something you got to consider when looking at a card like this. Anyways, that's what I think about old Hope Summers here. But let's get to some of the counters. All right, so man, there's some spicy counters to be had. First of all, Green Goblin. Funny enough, I was saying that he's a pretty sweet synergistic card, and I genuinely do believe he is. He's one of my key synergies later on, but he's also a pretty nasty counter because if he goes over to the Hope Summers location, that's going to give you one less spot that you can play at her location to get +1 energy on the following turn. And it might actually board lock you because if you just play like 2 cards at Hope Summers location and then they throw a goblin over there, that's going to be pretty nasty. So something to look out for. I think Junk is going to be amazing with Hope and also equally devastating to be playing against. Also, you got Gamora. So like I was saying, the Guardians of the Galaxy, basically any of them are going to do great, but I think Gamora especially because most likely you're going to try and play a card on turn 5 at Hope's location so that you can have max energy, bonus energy, I should say, on the final turn. So Gamora is a nice, easy telegraph snipe to get that 12 power on the board, which is just fantastic. Stegron, man, let's go, Stegron. Your time to shine, baby. You could slap Hope away so that all the cards that your opponent played there, if you are the Stegron player and you have priority, they're not going to give that player max bonus energy. I keep saying max energy. Not going to get that bonus because now Hope's location is elsewhere and now they're playing cards not at her location. It could be pretty fun. Could be pretty sweet and probably not consistent enough. But hey, Stegron, man. He's my guy. And then you got Professor X, a fantastic one, right? So you could either lock up the Hope Summers location, or you can anticipate that they're going to probably play there, so you play Professor X elsewhere and really lock up their board. It's going to be nasty. Man-Thing is a pretty sweet one, actually, because not only does Hope take the hit and go -2 power, but I imagine the player is going to play a lot of cheap cards at her location to just, make sure that they get that ramp up into that later game phase. So Man-Thing is probably going to get quite a bit of value out of his effect being positioned at the Hope Summers location. And lastly, Super Giant. So man, I hardly ever see this card. Like I could count on my hand how many times I've seen it. But she's definitely a tech card, and she performs decent. So I feel like it'll do pretty good against Hope, because all those cards that they play, if they're anticipating trying to get that max energy, right? Well, they're not going to reveal. So it's kind of shutting down that turn 5 energy gain that they might be trying to set up for. And then turn 6 obviously is going to play out, and they don't have that extra energy to work with. So that could be kind of nasty as well. So those are my counters. Now I want to get to the deck list that I'm really excited about. All right, let's go. So this is some of my favorite archetypes here. These decks that I've been playing quite a bit, and I think they're all relatively strong. So first of all, the key synergy. So Kitty Pryde is a fantastic synergy, but I just want to say, I know a lot of people are gravitating towards it because it's like, oh, you can play Kitty at Hope Summers location on repeat, and you're just going to keep getting that bonus energy. And it's like, yeah, that is pretty sick, but it's also just like making Kitty Pryde 0 cost, which is, no doubt that's good. But you're not like really getting energy surplus because you're always paying the cost for Kitty at Hope's location. So it's good, but it's not mind-blowing. I don't think it's like the greatest application for Hope. Whereas I really think that like Green Goblin is like one of the coolest ones, or one of the better ones, because of that big swing. And then Jeff, Nightcrawler, all these cards obviously are good cards. Moving around is fantastic. Getting that extra energy ramp is going to be fantastic. And then being able to move them off, so good. Hulkbuster. This is actually a pretty sneaky one, because he will give the +1 energy from Hope's ability, but he'll also just latch on to her or something else at his location, or her location rather, and it's gonna be great. You're gonna get that 3 power plus energy burst, so that's always nice. I was thinking of like a move deck. There's definitely one brewing up with Hope, man, where you can do some multiple man shenanigans maybe, or just move cards around. Vulture Man, he's gonna give you +6 power scaling, and you got Hulkbuster there. It could be pretty fun. I think definitely Hope could work in a move shell. And then lastly, we got Havoc, man. Let's go. You don't see Havoc a whole lot. He's very risky, but Hope could kind of counteract the negative energy loss that Havoc is, doing turn over turn by just playing like 1 card a turn at Hope's location. So you're losing 1 max energy from Havoc, but then you're getting 1 extra energy for the next turn via Hope. I still think that's going to be difficult to work with, and it's not always going to be very efficient, but it's relevant. They do kind of offset each other just a little bit, but I think still Havoc would be more devastating than losing max energy rather than gaining ramp into the following turns. So let's get to the deck. So I got the Junk Dunk. Let's go. So this deck, actually, I think I'm going to be streaming tonight with a buddy of mine who has never played Conquest, and I wanted to use this deck because they haven't really tried the Junk archetype, and this is a pretty fun one. Essentially, except obviously we don't have Hope yet, but here we have, the Hood, Celine, the Goblins, right? I'm trying to use that Goblin with Hope synergy, as well as getting them discounted so that we can play them earlier with more energy ramp, and we can ramp into Galactus. Obviously, that's the greatest part of this. And then you play Eliath. I think this deck is lights out. I think Hope is such a good fit for this archetype. And yeah, I look forward to playing this right away. I think it's gonna be pretty strong. You can play Hope on turn 3, and then you could play Green Goblin on turn 4, and then on turn 5 you can play Galactus. Turn 6 you can play Eliath. Now, obviously, the Green Goblin, if it's played at Hope Summers location, is not going to help you out with the Galactus play. But just ramping into that turn 5 Galactus, basically anywhere we can. Or maybe, like I was saying, on that turn 4, maybe we have the Hood or Celine or the Demon, right, to play at Hope's location to get that energy, play the Goblin elsewhere. There lots of potential, dude. Lots of potential. I think this is going to be fantastic. Another one is Unspent Hope. Because we're getting energy turn over turn just from playing cards at our location, it seems like it would do really well with cards that make use of unspent energy should we not really need it. So you can kind of just scale up. So I'm thinking, we can get the extra energy to go into the Hulk as soon as possible. Maybe we want to, have extra unspent energy to buff up Sunspot and make She-Hulk free so that turn 6 we can play Hulk and She-Hulk by passing on turn 5. Something like that, huh? Could be pretty fun. And on top of that, this deck is just good. Man, She-Hulk deck, high Evo, it's been at the top of the meta for a while. It might not be number one, but it's definitely top 3. And Hope seems like a pretty good card to throw in here. And lastly, I got Summer Surf. So I wanted to use Surfer because she's a 3 cost. And you know what? Think about it this way, man. With Surfer, you play, only 1 3 cost on turn 5, and that feels bad sometimes. Hopefully you can play Sarah, so you can play 3 3 costs on turn 6. But now with this, with Hope, I'm thinking we can play, we'll have 6 energy hopefully on turn 5, play 2 3 drops, and then on turn 6, play another 2 3 drops. That's great, right? You can play your Brood Gladiator turn 5, and then you can play your Jug Silver Surfer on turn 6. Something like that seems pretty good. So yeah, man, I know these aren't the most creative deck lists out there. I think there's going to be a lot of options. I had a few other ideas that I wanted to throw together. It's just a very flexible card that can fit in a lot of archetypes, and it's just good value. It just seems like good value. So is Hope Summers a snap or a pass? Well, speaking of good value, Hope Summers is a season pass card, and the season pass is the best value if you're willing to spend real dollars on Marvel Snap. So if you're a player that likes to get the season pass fairly regularly, or maybe not even, every single month, but only for months that you're really excited about, I think this is a really good one to buy into. I think Hope Summers is going to do well. It's going to find a deck list. Energy Ramp has always done well. I don't think this is a case of like Jean Grey, some similarities kind of. I think it's a lot more flexible than that. Even if you just get +1 energy, that's going to help into your deck strategy. If that's all you end up getting out of Hope's ability, it's probably going to help you out quite a bit. So anyways, I think this is a pretty easy snap, pretty good card to have in your collection. I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope she doesn't change by the time the announcement video comes out. But hey, stay tuned. I'm going to be talking about some star ratings for these cards. Believe it or not, she is not my highest rated card for the next month. You're going to have to tune in to see which one is. And then we're going to be talking about Pixie, who's going to be the next card also coming out the same week as Hope Summers. I'll have those videos coming out soon. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I will catch you guys next time.